Today I'm going to read to you the second task, the second psychological task that arises from this story, Vasilisa, and it's called Exposing the Crude Shadow. And it's from this book, chapter 3, and it's the second task after the story itself. And this is an important one because it emphasizes that the negative aspects of the story are all part of everyone's shadow. So in this case, we're emphasizing that the stepmother and the two stepsisters are actually in Vasilisa's own psyche. In this part of the tale, the bad, rotten stepfamily marches into Vasilisa's world and begins to make her life miserable. The tasks of this time are learning even more mindfully to let go of the overly positive mother, finding that being good, being sweet, being nice will not cause life to sing. Vasilisa becomes a slave, but it does not help. Experiencing directly one's own shadow nature, particularly the exclusionary, jealous, and exploitive aspects of the self, the stepmother and stepsisters. Owning these, making the best relationship one can with the worst parts of oneself, letting the pressure build between who one is taught to be and who one really is. Ultimately, working toward letting the old self die and the new intuitive self be born. The stepmother and stepsisters represent the undeveloped but provocatively mean elements of the psyche. They are shadow elements, meaning aspects of oneself which are considered by the ego undesirable and not useful and are therefore relegated to the dark. Shadow material can be very positive, for often a woman's gifts are also pushed into the dark. But negative shadow material can also be useful, as we shall see, for when it erupts and we finally specify those aspects and their sources, we are made all the stronger and wiser. In this stage of initiation, a woman is harassed by the petty demands of her psyche, which exhort her to comply with whatever anyone wishes. Compliance causes a shocking realization that must be registered by all women. That is, to be ourselves causes us to be exiled by many others, and yet to comply with what others want causes us to be exiled from ourselves. It is a tormenting tension, and it must be borne, but the choice is clear. Vasilisa is disenfranchised, for she inherits and is inherited by a family that cannot understand and appreciate her. As far as they're concerned, she is unnecessary. They hate and revile her. They treat her as the stranger, the untrustworthy one. In fairy tales, the role of the stranger or the outcast is usually played by the one who is most deeply connected to the knowing nature. The stepmother and stepsisters can be understood as creatures set into a woman's psyche by the culture to which a woman belongs. The stepfamily in the psyche is different from the soul family, for it is of the superego, that aspect of psyche which is structured according to each particular society's expectations, healthy or not, for women. These cultural, that is superego, overlays and injunctions are not experienced by women as emanating from the old self-psyche, but are felt as if they come from out there, from some other source which is not innate. The cultural superego overlays can be very positive or they can be very detrimental. Vasilisa's stepfamily is an intrapsychic ganglia which pinches off the nerve to life's vitality. They enter as a chorus, unredeemed hags who taunt, "You can't do it. You're not good enough. You're not bold enough. You're stupid, insipid, vacant. You don't have time. You're only good for simple things. You're only allowed to do this much and no more. Give up while you're ahead." As Vasilisa is not yet fully conscious of her power, she allows this evil crimp in her lifeline. In order for her to regain her life, something different, something life-giving must occur. The same is true for us. We can see in the story that Vasilisa's intuition into what is happening around her is quite flimsy, and that the father of the psyche doesn't notice the hostile environment either. He is also too good and has no intuitive development himself. It is interesting to note that daughters who have naive fathers often take far longer to awaken. We too are pinched off when the stepfamily within us and or around us tells us we are not much to begin with and insists we focus on our shortcomings rather than perceiving the cruelty whirling around us, be it within our psyches or without in the culture. However, to see into and through something requires intuition and also the strength to stand upon what one sees. Like Vasilisa, we may try to be nice when we should be knowing. We may have been taught to set aside acute insight in order to get along. However, the reward for being nice in oppressive circumstances is to be mistreated more. Although a woman feels that if she is herself, she will alienate others, it is just this psychic tension that is needed in order to make soul and to create change. So the stepmother and stepsisters scheme to send Vasilisa away. They secretly plot. Go into the forest, Vasilisa. Go to Baba Yaga. And if you survive, which you won't, then we might accept you. This is a very critical idea because many women are stuck halfway through this initiation process, sort of hanging half in and half out of the hoop. Although there is a natural predator in the psyche, one who says die and bah and why don't you give up on a rather automatic basis, the culture in which a woman lives and the family in which she was raised can painfully exacerbate that natural but moderate no-saying aspect of the psyche. For instance, women who are raised in families that are not accepting of their gifts often set off on tremendously big quests over and over, and they do not know why. They feel they must have 3 PhDs, or that they have to hang upside down from Mount Everest, or that they must execute all manner of dangerous, time-consuming, and money-eating endeavors to try to prove to their families that they have worth. Now will you accept me? No? Okay, sigh, watch this. The stepfamily ganglia, of course, belongs to us by whichever means we received it, and it is our work to deal with it in an empowered manner. However, we can see that for the deep work to continue, trying to prove one's worth to the chorus of jealous hags is pointless, and as we shall see, in fact impedes initiation. Vasilisa does the everyday chores without complaint. To submit without complaint is heroic seeming, but in fact causes more and more pressure and conflict between the two oppositional natures, one too good and the other too demanding. Like the conflict between over-adaptive and being oneself, this pressure builds to a good end. A woman who is torn between these two is in a good way, but she must take the next steps. In the story, the stepwomen so squeeze the psychic force that by their machinations the fire goes out. At this point, a woman begins to lose her psychic bearings. She may feel cold, alone, and willing to do anything to bring back the light again. This is just the jolt the too nice woman needs to continue her induction into her own power. One might say that Vasilisa has to meet the great wild hag because she needs a good scare. We have to leave the chorus of detractors and plunge into the woods. There is no way to both stay and go. Vasilisa, like us, needs some guiding light that will differentiate for her what is good for her and what is not. She cannot develop by standing around being everyone's bootjack. Women who try to make their deeper feelings invisible are deadening themselves. The light goes out. It is a painful form of suspended animation. Conversely, and perhaps somewhat perversely, when the fire is put out, it helps to snap Vasilisa out of her submission. It causes her to die to an old way of life and to step with shivers into a new life, one which is based on an older, wiser kind of inner knowing. Okay, that completes the second task. If you have not heard the basic story of Vasilisa the Wise, or you want to have the introduction to these tasks, please check the links that appear below this video. Thank you.